Hello, and welcome back to our second installment of Get Busy with Bradley Zink. I'm Bradley Zink. Uh, now that we got those first show jitters out of the way, we hope to have a much more productive and informative show for you today. First off, I'd like to thank my today's sponsors of the episode, In the Midst 777 and Pastor Gary Lee. I love you guys' music. Thanks for that intro from their single Resist. And thank you for guys' support. I'd like to just first do a little intro of what today's show is going to be about. Today, I'm going to cover two of the major issues plaguing California today, which is the homeless issue and also addressing the problems with the housing crisis we have in California. Um, so let's get into this and start off with the homelessness issue. If we can bring up the pictures of the tent cities for us real quick. At the beginning of the 20th century in San Diego, as you can see with Coronado Hotel in the background, from the 1900s to 1930s, tent cities were a posh, wonderful thing. As you see, it's a beautiful installment. It was chic to be able to live in a tent community. Then if you can bring up the second photo and you'll see what this is California today and how our tent cities have become due to the ever increasing homelessness issue that is plaguing our fine state. Um, in the current administration, they've spent over $13 billion in the last 3 years to help combat the issue of homelessness throughout California. And as you can see, just from this simple picture alone, how well it hasn't gotten any better, but as statistics have shown, it's increased almost 20% over the last 3 to 5 years. Thus leaving us in a much harsher situation for being able to deal with such an issue. The homeless population in California has grown over 160,000. Southern California alone has a quarter of the U.S. population of homeless living there. Um, we're continually having to find ways, or at least our current administration continually tries to find ways to fix this issue. Some of those being putting a select few in a temporary housing, also known as hotel stays, for about 3 weeks at a time, at the cost of about 5 to 8 thousand per night per homeless person to house in a hotel. Then they have about a 3 week program to try to establish them temporary housing, employment, and getting prepared for being a productive person in society and getting off of the streets. One of the major issues that we have with trying to solve homelessness is the fact that it's not being fully addressed. Most people and a lot of politicians will tell you that it's drug addiction, which is the leading cause of homelessness. Statistics have shown that about 34% of California's homelessness either suffer from mental illness or from a drug addiction problem. Now, remember, we have over 160,000 homeless, so that would only be about 50 to 60,000 roughly actually are suffering from mental illness or from drug addiction. But there's three major groups of homelessness, and the only way to solve it is to address all three of those situations of homelessness. First, you have, like I mentioned, the ones that are truly mentally ill or suffer from drug addiction. The second group of the population of homeless that we have are the ones that the politicians target to try to get off of the streets and assist. Those are roughly the 53,000 that are capable human beings able to work, but have fallen on hard times, whether it been from being a veteran, from the pandemic, just life dealing them a tough situation where they've lost their housing, lost their ability to support themselves in a housed environment, and have been forced onto the streets. Hence the reason why you see all these tents springing up everywhere, and even the motorhomes that you see parked, 5, 6, 7 deep all along the cities that you drive along today. Then the third and final group of the homeless population is those that are capable of working but have dogs or pets. Um, the ones that have mental illness, drug addiction, and pets, which is about 2/3 of the homeless population, are the ones that the politicians do not address. No housing shelter, no temporary housing will allow drug addiction. Um, None of them will allow pets for safety issues. Therefore, they're with all the legislation that's being passed and all the different proposals to fix homelessness, they're only going to address a third of the situation. So you're always going to have a homeless problem. Another issue that people wonder is why, like how some cities have homeless tent encampments throughout, some cities don't. We're fortunate here in San Marcos, California, that we don't have tent cities set up around the city, but our neighbors like Escondido, Vista, Oceanside, you can see a lot of those tent cities that have sprung up. Um, Two of the reasons why you see that happen. One, there's a differentiation between city property, county property, and state property. The cities can only address the issue of homelessness when those tents are on city property. When they're on county property, it's passed off to the county to deal with that homeless situation or those tent cities springing up. Um, then you take the extreme measure of where you see them all along the highways, all along the overpasses, the off ramps. That's state property, whereas then it's the state's responsibility to address the homeless populations that are growing there. Because you have the separation between city, county, and state, that's why you also see them move from place to place. When the city comes in to move them off of city land, they'll move over to county land. Once the county comes in and addresses their tent cities and county land, then they move over to state property. Now, the other issue of why some cities will have a homeless population and others won't is you will notice a concentration of the homeless will congregate in or around the areas where social services are offered to them. Like in Vista and Oceanside, there'll be 2 to 3 to 4 blocks, an easy walking distance to visit with the social services, the health department services, to have that accessibility to the resources that they need and that they require to be able to continue. But how are we going to fix this? Well, understand that government is like any other business, and as long as you budget for something, you will always have the justification for needing that money budgeted year after year after year. Now, if you take the approach of solving a problem, then you don't have that justification for applying that funds year after year after year, which would in turn be less taxes that would need to be collected to fund these projects. So as long as the state and current politicians try to address and do fixes to these to the problem of homelessness, they're always going to have justification for needing those funds year after year after year to address them. I propose, instead of wasting taxpayers' money like this year after year, is we solve the problems. Now, how do we solve these problems? Well, if we could bring up the by the numbers to break down this for you all real quick. As I said, the state is proposing $12 billion to fight the homeless problem. So what can $12 billion truly accomplish in other aspects of our life? First off, China built a 250-mile electric bullet train from China to Tibet through the Himalayan mountains at a cost of $5.6 billion. You can purchase mini houses on Amazon for as little as $9,000. And with 160,000 homeless people at $9,000 each, you could literally buy every homeless person in California a little mini home for $1.4 billion. And now they're no longer homeless. It's just an additional 160,000 unemployed. Sports mega complexes. An example, AT&T Stadium where the Dallas Cowboys play, American Airlines Center where the Dallas Stars and Dallas Mavericks play. Those two gorgeous facilities cost a combined total of $2 billion to construct. Then you have Elon Musk's Boring Company that charges $10 million per mile to bore a tunnel. So for a 150-mile long tunnel from, say, Chula Vista to Yuma, Arizona would cost $1.5 billion. Those 4 points that I just brought up comes up to a grand total of only $10.5 billion. And with that $10.5 billion, what have we done? Well, we've solved the homeless problem. As I said, we buy them each a little mini home for $1.4 billion total cost. Now there's no more homeless. You've built a revenue generating infrastructure. You're building a bullet train that will go roughly from San Diego to Arizona, where the state would own, collecting the revenue from utilization of that bullet train. Unlike the proposed bullet train that they've been working on for years now, have already wasted $40 billion of taxpayer money, and now they say that the grand total to go from San Francisco to LA on the bullet train is going to cost $100 billion. Whereas the Chinese can build a bullet train 250 miles through the Himalayan mountains for $5.6 billion. You're securing the California and Mexico border by tunneling from San Diego to Arizona for that bullet train. You've cut off any possibility of illegally tunneling for human and drug trafficking underneath the border, below ground. Above ground, then, you would put a light rail system also from San Diego all the way to Yuma, Arizona, that would thus in turn eliminate all possibility of illegal drug and human trafficking across the border above ground. By opening up that entire border region, you're able to develop the 200 plus miles of unused land between San Diego and Yuma, Arizona. With the scale of this project, in building new cities, you'll need new businesses. You'll need the 2 million plus unionized laborers to help build these new cities, thus solving that employment problem. And now in building that world-class all sports mega complex, you bring football back to San Diego County. You can bring basketball and hockey teams to San Diego County. And with the infrastructure, the sports megaplexes, you have the ability to earn yet another Olympic bid, like LA has, right here in San Diego County, thus bringing in tens of billions of dollars in additional revenue for the state. What I propose we do to solve the homeless issue, instead of doing this $12 billion addressing only 53,000 of the 160,000 plus homeless that we have, is to build little communities with these little mini homes. Like I said, Amazon homes for 10,000 are just one example. You can even get prefabricated modular mobile homes for 30,000. At that cost, it would still only be $4.8 billion to house every homeless person in the state. Building little communities for the ones that, like I said, the three main groups, the ones that have mental illness and drug addiction, have communities with the social services and health services on site in those communities, therefore eliminating any need for the homeless to be wandering the streets, camping out blocks away from the social services that they are trying to obtain. Having the community for the ones that are capable, fully functioning humans that are able to work, um, both the ones with and without dogs, creating homeless communities where they'll be homed with the dogs. Then you can also not only just have the social services and health services, but boarding on site so that people are able to obtain jobs, leave their dogs tended to and cared for during the day, which would also be creating jobs for those people as well, to be able to tend to the animals while the others go to work. Can this be done? Absolutely. But the biggest thing that holds everyone back is NIMBY, not in my backyard. Everybody loves the idea of creating these communities to get the homeless off the street, but they don't want it in their backyard. So in building an infrastructure along the border of a light rail system above ground, speed rail system below ground, shoring up and making the border safe, you can start to now develop those former homeless, now homed, housed little communities with social services, health services, kennel services on site, thus solving the homeless issue. Next, if we go ahead and take down this one and bring up the housing picks that we've selected for the show, I'd like to address the housing crisis. Affordable housing, and the lack of affordable housing in the state of California. The continual building of housing developments in high risk areas that are prone to wildfires, windstorms that cause electrical lines to down, causing fires, flooding, people having to build in high risk flood zones, thus increasing insurance for everybody, making homes even harder to be affordable in the state of California. Cookie cutter homes where we use up every single square inch of utilizable land in each of our cities to accommodate the state mandated required roof counts for each city in each county of the state. As an example, San Diego County in the next, I believe it's 6 or 7 years, has to account for 179,000 additional roofs to address the continued growth of our county and the population growth. That's in 6 years, 179,000 homes. So what do you see in these situations by these state imposed mandates of how many homes need to be in each county? Then the county divvies up how many homes need to be built in each city. And if the cities and counties don't reach those state required mandates, then the cities and counties are fined for not, one, addressing the affordable housing issue and creating enough affordable housing, two, not creating enough roof counts, which is mandated by the county and state for each of the cities. So if the cities, the counties don't build up every utilizable square inch of land, then they're fined. Meanwhile, we have 200 miles of unused borderland. If we could bring up border pick one, please. Between San Diego and Arizona, this is the current view of the border. To the north, you see very little development. That's the US side of the border. Our neighbors across the south of the border, you see highly industrialized residential communities utilizing all that land around the border. If we could bring up picture number 2 real quick, please. Why don't people build the border up? Because of, as I mentioned earlier, security and safety issues, the illegal drug trafficking, human trafficking, illegal border crossings. Everybody likes to point out, oh, well, Trump tried to build the wall, the wall, which is another political contention point that's helped split up the people. Many people don't realize that every president since Clinton administration has been building and adding to that wall all along the border between us, the United States and Mexico. With Operation Gatekeeper, that was the Clinton administration that actually started building the wall up. And so when everyone talks about Trump's wall, that was just his addition to the wall. Understand that the Democrats and Republicans alike have been building that wall up for close to 30, 40 years now. 30 years now. But yet we see no development. We still see the empty housing. With all this land, as you see from San Diego to Arizona, all along that border, it's unused. So as I propose to help address the issues with our housing crisis, in just the 179,000 homes that just San Diego County alone needs in the next 6 years, building the light rail system above ground, bullet train below ground along the border, that will take care of the safety concerns that you have. Now you'll be able to develop that 200 plus miles of land, which is roughly enough to build close to 2 to 3 million new homes of all price ranges, from affordable to the micro mansions that we see California brailed up. You'll have new cities, you'll have an increase of need for unionized labor, blue collar workers, white collar workers. You'll have more land to develop for additional corporate offices. Get a second Silicon Valley, move down here, seeing as how Northern California is densely populated. You know, living in San Jose for several years, working at eBay Corporation, PayPal Corporation, I'd spend an hour and a half just driving 2 miles each way to work because of how densely populated it is, because that's where the jobs are. So if you open up those 200 miles of land, you're able to now be able to have the ability to, like I said, relocate a bunch of corporate offices, have a secondary corporate office for the Facebooks, the eBays, Tesla. Instead of losing them to Texas, China, and Germany for their gigafactories, all that land that's available. It's seen as how we'll need Elon Musk to be able to bore that tunnel for us. You can see that the possibility of not losing any more additional companies with this large amount of employee bases going to other states because it's more affordable. With all that land that's not being utilized along the border now, the square footage would be very cheap, very affordable for many companies to be able to relocate or to open up, like I said, secondary offices down there. But then once you start building out in the hotter desert regions, well, then you're going to have to start addressing the other two other issues that we have in California: electrical needs and water needs. And just as a brief lead into next episode's topics, alongside that rail line system, building a canal from the Pacific Ocean all the way along the border there, 150, 200 miles in, with desalination plants and hydroelectric power plants. As the water moves along the desert region there, becoming more and more brackish, it'd be less strain on the desalination plants to need to desalinate to make it a drinkable, potable water. That would help address your water needs. Electrical needs, well, in building that 200-mile railroad from San Diego to Yuma, in high density areas of living, when there's railroad tracks, the Federal Transportation Authority requires to have walls installed to prevent people from getting injured. from the tracks. Along the tops of those walls, you can line them with solar paneling, which would help, well, basically bring the electrical needs for the train system. In the um, case of the once homeless, now housed communities that we building not only solar paneling on all of their homes, therefore their self-sustaining homes with electrical needs, with that additional land, being able to build solar installations, which would also increase the need for more jobs for those communities, to maintain the solar paneling that would help alleviate the strains on our current electrical system. Well, I think that that's about covers episode 2 for the housing and homeless issues that the state of California is facing, not only today, but in the future. And hopefully I've logically and sufficiently addressed a feasible working solution to these problems. What I'd like to do now is do a quick promo for our next episode that we will be doing. Also, thanks again to In the Mid 777 for being our community sponsor today. And just a little bit of information: In the Mid 777 and 3 or 4 other bands will be having a concert party fundraiser on Saturday, April 30th at the Grace Vineyard Church at 102 North Freeman Street in Oceanside, California. In the Mid 777 has been selected to headline the Music Awards in Nashville this year. And this is a fundraiser to help get that band out to Nashville to help them be able to perform for the awards ceremony. For our next episode, we're going to be further diving into my plans of building a canal system along the border, as well as the speed rail system that's going to help address our infrastructure, electrical, and water issues that we have not only today, but for the future of California. Again, this is Bradley Zink on Get Busy with Bradley Zink. I appreciate you all tuning in today for this broadcast, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you and have a wonderful day.